classes and stuff. Who runs this place now?
It's still Willie.
No.
I guess it helps when you're the Minister of Broadcasting, bro.
It helps now, yeah. It really helps now.
Which is a wonderful thing. So it's just great. It's great that, you know, yeah, obviously in those particular things you've got to be impartial, you know,
Yeah.
given the position. Put those headphones on.
But you can only be impartial for so long, eh?
Well, yeah,
You gotta help yourself,
Yeah, well,
otherwise-
you gotta try and make a difference, eh?
Mm.
So the social work, how you digging that? How's that?
Oh, good.
How's that rocking your world, bro?
Well, you know, it's really good because I wanted to be able to advocate for Māori and Pacific in mental health because I've seen it, that they don't get treated well. But the only way I can do that is if I educate myself. So do the bachelor's, do the master's, and I think they'll take my voice more seriously. Like
Nice.
if you
Yeah,
go
yeah,
eating for
yeah.
your PhD. That's the same thing because I've seen it over the last 10 years that the way they've been treated.
You kind of get discredited because of without the certification.
Yeah, I mean, I should be able to just go in and advocate for it now, but I've tried that and no one listens.
Yeah, sure.
So I sort of figure if I do the bachelor's and I finished it and then do the master's, and if they still don't, I'll go to the PhD. But having to go down to Wellington and just knock on doors and say, where's our voice? Where's our policy for Māori and Pacific mental health, especially that? So that's my thing. But being able to use music as well with it as well, because there's no holistic healing when it comes to music and mental health. Nothing.
Because there's that correlation too, between the healing powers,
Yeah,
of music. You know?
for sure. I mean, our cultures have it so strong, but when it comes to healing, the holistic healing, but people call it holistic because they don't understand it. But it's just music has always been part of our culture, but Pākehā don't have it there. But for us, it's strong. So we need to put that into part of that policy of use music, use creative arts, use whatever you can to get that person back to how he was or how she was.
Yeah.
But especially music. You see with kapahaka, with Pacific festivals and all that, people gravitate for music. But that's the only thing that they don't use in mental health is music and creative arts. Not hugely.
Well, I guess there's that disparity or that between the knowledge of how it works.
Yeah.
And is it a potential? It's like, you know, it's another form of green prescription.
Yeah.
Rather than give you drugs, chuck you in the gym and get some exercise and
Yeah, for sure.
do some flexibility or listen to some music whilst you're doing all that.
Yeah.
To combine something as a holistic
Yeah.
product, medicine.
Yeah.
Taonga, what do you call it? You know, a form of rungoa, you know, in that space to heal
Yeah.
one's soul, one's.
Well, it's the same thing with people being by the ocean, you know, and people don't understand what it is about the ocean that makes them connected to it. It's because of the rhythm of the water. If you close your eyes and listen to it, and you can breathe at the same rhythm of that, you know, and that's your mindfulness, just learning to understand and listen to rhythms and stuff. And it doesn't have to be drum or guitar. You can listen to anything, the sound of a bird, the wind blowing, and all that. And I think for a lot of us, as we grew up, we listened to rhythms and music, but then when we get unwell, we forget that we can hear that, you know. So we just got to get back to it, and we should do everything we can to, help people get back to that.
Well, there's always that angle too. I remember when my ma was a little bit unwell. And, you know, coming from, you know, personal training background, you understand the benefit of exercise and diet and the combination of those things on a daily basis will make you feel better. You know, all those types of things. But there's a reliance. In some ways, I feel that there's a reliance. Oh, if the doctor doesn't say do that, then it can't be good for me.
Yeah.
There's no trust. There's no trust in our connection to nature and all the beauty that has on offer to heal you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you become mentally unwell, You go and see a doctor today or a psychiatrist. They'll give you medication. They won't see you for 3 months or 6 months. So what do you do in that meantime? And who tells you about the medication? What you don't know the side effects. You don't even know what if you're the main breadwinner. How do they make that money? You know, it's a crazy circle that a lot of our people don't understand. If you're the primary wage earner in your family and you come mentally unwell, what does your partner do? How does she make it work? And for Pacific and Māori who don't get that, it's really hard for them to go to that next level or next step.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, very true, bro. Okay. I'm going to try and I'll get our mic thingy and we'll get us into it.
Sure.
Joey's ready to rock. A nice warm-up conversation, bro.
Yeah, man.
Just lighting up our songs, bro. How's the music? What are you doing on the music front?
Not so much of recent days, bro. Just been I've been helping people produce music, so that's where my skills gone more mainly. Still support some of the odd guys when they want to do, you know, guitar or bass or drums or sax.
Can you still blow in that sax, bro?
Not as much, but my kids are. But I sort of went away from that from music when my brothers died. Sort of threw it in for a while and then decided that I wanted to write and direct a movie. So I went and did that. And then I went and did...
How was it?
It was good. I wanted to understand the whole process of it because I'd done about 8 documentaries about the Pacific, but I wanted to do a movie to just see whether I could do it on the cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Easy on the cheap or hard on the cheap?
If I went back and did it now, it would be easier. But because it was... I sort of...
Well, just power to it once you know how to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, we're only limited by ourselves, eh? So if you don't have that... If there's no mountain in front of you, then of course you're just going to walk on the flat and it's going to be easy. But you don't know how hard it is until you get to the top. You go, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
And it was difficult because I decided that I would do it in Tonga, in the Tongan language, and then translate it to English. And I'm not Tongan.
Hey,
why not?
Those mountains, bro. Just scale it anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, if there's not a mountain, just put one there anyway, bro.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool, man.
Awesome, bro.
So I did that. We got a bit of help from the tourism board, from the royal family that were there. So they let us halt one of the planes that landed so we could film it. You know, to stop it so it wouldn't turn around. They wouldn't even let the people off until we filmed. Yeah.
Hey, that's what happens, bro, when you're royalty at the event.
Yeah.
Hey, you own the airwaves, you own the air.
Yeah,
May as well.
Even the police, would walk down, the cops would be up there stopping the traffic and all that sort of stuff, so that's always good.
That's awesome. And Tonga's beautiful too, eh?
Oh, it is, yeah. Yeah, it is. But the story is common. Someone loses their culture, go back and try and find it. So, but if I had the chance to do it again, which, only person stopping me is me, I would approach it differently. The mechanics of it, or the practical side, I was just, because, we just got to make up the story as we go along.
But that's the beauty of it, Shucks, if you're able to, push record and make a movie, bro, and then have it play the way the theatre of your mind bring it out to reality, man, that's massive. Yeah,
actually, a lot of the stuff that we've done as a family is because somebody else has told us that we couldn't. And I remember helping this woman do her documentary that was really short. And I said, oh, I might do one. She says, oh, you can't. So I did 8
You can't.
You can't. You got to go.
That's
to
all the
school.
incentive you needed was,
Yeah.
I can't. There you go, lady. You don't say that to the creative type to you, bro. It's just a challenge, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a challenge. Another one of those mountains, bro. And you just
I know,
knock it
yeah,
down.
I know. You can either walk your way up it or walk around it. I'd rather go up it and you learn from it.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
It's good that you're doing your study though, bro.
Yeah,
It's
studies.
good.
It's magic, bro. It's just, it's really made a massive difference. It's something that I've loved, since day dot. And I've been lucky enough to put a couple of notes together by hearing them, but understanding them on a greater level now is gonna even listening to Sister Saline sing last at her performance. She had Carl Benton on keys, Brinny Nepia on bass, she had Pat on drums, Teddy was on Get, she had Victor, and
Wow.
Victor doing BVs, Hannah doing BVs, and one of the other girls from school doing BVs. Then TJ got up and did a song.
Wow.
And I got a chance to sing with her. But I was just sitting back, just watching the integration of the way that I probably never listened to music before, was listening for all the little touches in the space where everyone's trying to work as one, but then it throws to a specific person who puts a solo part over it, or just the way that Pat is maintaining that, just the drum groove of the right place, and he's working, he's reading and playing to make sure that he's in the right place in the right time with everyone else. And you got Saline over the top, and the BVs are doing. But I was just kind of moving around the stage and just appreciating the way that everyone delivered their skill set to make that one sound happen at the same time, in time, on time, in key. Just like, yeah, man.
And it's automatic, eh?
Yeah.
It's automatic.
There's and it's part of that stuff for me in the music sense is really, I like the now. I'm not what I've kind of discovered about my appreciation of it is about a game right now. So I don't like to rehearse or over rehearse, because then it's not an authentic now. And I'd rather bring everything I know to okay, let's go. Here's a mountain, let's climb it. I don't want to do all the prep to get up there. I want the skill set and the knowledge, but I want to be able to apply it in a very now sense, rather than just to make sure we take that practical step to that one, to that one, to that one. I really want that naturalness.
Yeah, that's what I find.
Unearth.
Like with study and the way the Pākehā way of educating is built, sometimes it takes it away from that, especially social services. We care for people easily, but then they take you out of that and teach you how to care for people in their way, which is not always cool for us. So we've got to get the qualification, and then we've got to go back and apply it to what we do.
Very true, brother. Been enjoying some beautiful sounds through Wātea on 6:03 a.m. this morning. Got the very honoured to have brother Tony Fuemana in the house, as we just about to get underway with our whānau at home. Just about to get underway with our Fuemana whānau tribute with some of these amazing musicians that come from that magic family of yours, bro, yourself included, and just the way that everyone has, contributed musically, bro. It's been stunning. So, yes, very lucky. How's that cup of tea? Let me know if you need another one, bro. We'll get it organised.
Thank you.
We're going to venture out. Got a couple of, Dennis Hippie.
Yeah.
Yes, Dennis is going to come in next week and do some live elements.
Oh, nice.
And got Kingsley, who's one of the teachers at Mains next week. He's going to bring guitar in and do.
Why does that name sound familiar? Kingsley.
Yeah, Kingsley. He teaches at Mains.
Yeah.
Malhuish is his surname.
Oh.
Yeah, so he teaches another one of those super brainy music cats, bro. So looking forward to having him in the studio next week. And yeah, it's really neat at the moment because everyone's got fresh music, new albums that are coming out. I have got Mrs. Caitlin Smith in this afternoon. She's coming into so she's just released her latest album. She's playing at the casino at the moment. So and she's a very how I would call her an amazingly quirky magician of music because she's just so that voice of hers is exceptional. That mind, that what do they call it? The mind-mouth connection between being able to hear, the scope of music, the octaves of music, and she sings, she responds to however she feels, and musically she has the capacity to do that, which is just so. Which I love about this world of ours, bro. This world of ours.
Yeah, I love it too, man.
Yeah, man.
Mm. The music, just opens the doors to so many things.
Yeah, it's very cool, man. It's very, very cool. Yeah, so before we round the year out, I got Lee Bradfield, who's a teacher at Maine. She teaches, specialises in vocal performance. Right. And she's just put an album out as well, so we're going to have a chance to chat with her, and then Alana Goldsmith's coming through as well, bro. So it's kind of in that sort of jazz space. Ray Lee's in that sort of folk, country folk stuff, which is, I guess, the magic of it is that there's so many people. So many different genres for people to articulate their feelings, which is
and the funny thing is, with Māori and Pacific, we sort of navigate through all the different styles of music without really understanding. We don't have a big, huge picture of it. It doesn't matter to us. We love the rhythm, and so we can fit in. We understand the colours of music, so we just go where that colour suits us.
That's exactly right, brother. That's exactly right. Colour's I think colour's a great musical term, to use. I like to use it when I'm teaching vocals. So that if you've got a melody line that does that, then there are colours inside of that. That harmonic spectrum, to add colour, to add flavour, whether it's a third, up, down, under, fifth, up, down, under, seventh, whatever. Even octaves, how beautiful the right use of an octave can be, or two, or three, or four, depending on depending how talented, or what you're trying to portray. But it's a magical thing. Waiting for our old brother to
kick us off.
Yes. Cool, bro. Okay, brother. Kia ora te iwi, nau mai haere mai ki tēnei hōtaka, te Semiotics of Music. I tēnei wā ki te kōrero au pāna ki te tangata rongonui o te ao pūhoro, Tony Fuemana, and we're going to have a kōrero with Tony about the magical family that you come from, bro, the Fuemana family, te mana o rātou katoa, me tō whakaro o te āhuatanga o te ao pūhoro. Your love of music, your family's love of music will go across all those things during our show today here on Radio Wātea 6:03 AM. So I guess first and foremost, brother, for our listeners, please tell us who you are and your whakapapa, given you've got a couple of cultures that you're representing today, brother.
Yeah, Tony Fuemana, and so my dad's from Mutaloa, which is in the tiny Pacific island of Niue, and so that's who I identify with. But my mum's from Taranaki, so our area is in Parihake. But I'm still learning that part of it, and I was lucky enough to be down there for the first time, probably about a month ago or 2 months ago, down in Parihake, and just getting a feel for the place. It's always difficult though when you're there, because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know who to talk to, but the whole idea for me was just to go down and get a feel for the place, to know where I come from, because I think it's my responsibility to teach my kids where they come from. Yeah, so I've done the Niuean side, and because one of my aunties said, don't forget your Niuean, and so I went over there and, you know, spent quite a bit of time going back and forward and discovering my roots.
So what was that journey? What was that? What did that? If you had spent most of your life here, obviously you have an understanding of life in the New Zealand context.
Yeah.
What did going to visit the homelands of Niue mean to? How did that fill you up to make you a better person?
Well, our family are really urban Pacific, so this is what we know this. We weren't really that connected to our Pacific or Māori roots, and so when my brothers passed away, when my older brother passed away, Phil, we decided to go over to Niue because the government wanted to recognise Phil's contribution to music, and so that was our first visit.
Oh, bless.
Yeah, so we went over and
I still miss his beautiful face. I still miss just being in his company, bro. He was just yourself included. Whenever we were together, in that space, there's just this giant of a man that just oozed love, oozed music, oozed the desire to help other people understand the beauty of music, bro. That was the neat thing about being around that man.
Well, it's an amazing thing too that even when Phil died, a lot of the New Zealand government, you know, recognised him, and you know, a lot of Pacific governments recognised his contribution to Pacific music, and the whole thing was that with me going back there was just to say thank you to the people of Niue, but also for me to connect, because Phil never went there. We were supposed to go the year that he passed, but we didn't manage to go because the big cyclone sort of came through and scared us, so we never decided, no way are we going back. But when I went back and you know, I left some of his things there and as part of him, and I know that he wanted to go back, but for me connecting back into my roots wasn't really that important when I was growing up, because I didn't understand it, and we didn't understand it enough, even on the Māori side of it, because we had this resentment against how we grew up. We didn't really get it, and it wasn't actually until Phil decided that he wanted to find out about the Māori side of who he was that I started to have that awareness of it. Because I sort of paid a little bit of attention to it through school and stuff, but not really. I was lucky that I had Hilda Harawira, who was one of my high school tutors.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
And with their things that they were going through at that time with the kōkiri and Ota and all the people that they were meeting with, it made me realise that I was quite disassociated to my culture. And when I was lucky enough to go, like I said, to Taranaki with a friend of mine, Nikki, and I'd never been there before, and so she was, you know, showing me where it was and all that. So that was a good journey. But yeah, I'm really quite Pacific, urban Pacific, which means I'm more I'm disassociated from my culture, but I appreciate it. But I don't understand it a lot. But part of my journey is to find a lot more about it.
Yeah, cool. Oh, fantastic, brother. Hey, look, obviously we have a wonderful selection of songs that make up part of that musical contribution to music in the Pacific, which includes Aotearoa as well. And the first song that we're going to take a look at today is the song Party House, Dangerous Love from Party House, under that particular name. We'll take a listen to that song and then we'll break it down after.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
So here we go. Finally, here's Party House.
House
Dangerous,
party?
Yeah, house party. Shucks.
In Niuean, it's Party House. But
Party House. There you go. Party House. No, that's all good. No. Awesome. Party House. The house party sounds good to me, bro. Dangerous Love here on Wāti at 6:03 a.m. Oh, okay. So how it actually works? So they've got a live show because we're doing this as a pre-record. If I play that, it's what they're actually playing. So this will come up in our interview, which is just sweet. The one that goes live to air, we'll have the song and then we'll just deconstruct it from there. So and Sissy's good.
yeah, she's doing well. Her boy turns 21 this week.
Oh, me?
Yeah. So she's been busy that. She's been
Oh,
trying
it's
to get
close
me
for
to
you
go.
guys, having kids, 21st together.
So she's trying to get me to come over. I said, no way, man. I'll be stuck there. You're never going to do that voucher thing to come back, you know?
Yeah, it's a bit hard at the moment. The world's in a different
for sure,
place.
For sure.
You know? Yeah, it was nice to go, when I was listening to the tracks, just listening to just see how it all, where it fits into life, if you go back over the last 30 years, where it slots in there, It's like, wow, what was I doing on those days, when that song was then, when it was released. But I mean, good, it was a good time to go back and house party. With that, so was it a generational thing for you guys? Music,
No. Like, were we carrying on the tradition? No. We sort of started the wave for us. Phil did, actually. The reason why we got into music was to get us out of poverty. Sure. That was the sole reason. And I remember we didn't have that much. We had nothing. So no power. We were cooking our food in the chimney. The fireplace chimney, the fireplace and stuff. And so we were doing that. That was us in the middle of Votara in Parnell. And so we had no real way out of that. And then music. Phil started doing music at high school, doing the tape-to-tape recording. That's where David, Nafika came into it, because Dave was just this, wild child back then. My sister met, had a whole lot of talent, but had no idea. So him and Phil started writing one song, Light the Fire. It was his very first song back in the early 80s, I think it was. There was David's first one. It was the B-side to one of the Brothers Johnson's instrumental tracks. And Phil wrote the song, because Phil was a cleaner at the school, and they used to, of course, borrow the school stuff and use it. So that was the first thing, and then Phil understood music because people liked David's voice and Phil's, because Phil had a really strong voice, very strong, very high. It was pretty amazing. Yeah. And so from there, just started from that, and we saw a way out. And that happened through church.
There you go, find it. House party.
House party.
House party. So I guess it features the magic voice of Sister Christina, bro, which is which is a part of New Zealand folklore in terms of music. Tell us about that song, bro, and how it came about, and I guess how important it was to the legacy of your family.
Oh, it's really important. That Dangerous Love was our first commercial released music. It was the very first. We had been involved in Christian music for a long time up until then. A long time, I'd say maybe 4 or so years. And this was our first step out into the mainstream. And Phil had written this song. Matty J. Rise is on that. He's doing the rap. Christina's there. Phil's doing the backup vocals, and the whole lot of us were involved in this. We did the music video down at the old Britomart with a couple of guys. Paul was in it too. He was one of the background dancers, if you ever see the video. And so this was our very first launch into it. And so it was also Phil's first step into mainstream when it came to production and writing. And so that was an important step for him, because he wanted to see whether he could compete with mainstream stuff. And back during this time, there were a lot of Pacific and Māori artists, but what Phil wanted to do was try to do it better, because he'd come across Frank Wilson, who was from Motown. He came here and they were doing the Talent Quest thing and Challenge Phil. Got a lot of
that was a massive component, doing all that talent search stuff.
Yeah, I mean that was huge for Phil, because he always used to say, as Frank Wilson that actually told him, there's a lot of talent, but it's only talent, and there's a lot of it around. You've got to lift your game. He pushed Phil to lift his game, And so from there, Phil never. That's what he did. So with this one, that was his first one, and I can't remember where it went on the charts, but it actually did quite well. But what it did is cemented his place, cemented his place in music. But he saw that it could be done, and it could be done well if he put his mind to it.
Well, I think that's, I guess the stepping stones, like you say, if you can get the right elements together, and as soon as people like it, or it does well on mainstream, then you're going to be recognised, which is probably all it takes when you've got dreams and aspirations, and someone saying that the direction that you're heading down is pretty cool. I guess that's all the incentive that you need to believe in yourself to do the next song and to do the next album. And
I mean, you're only limited by yourself, and we criticise ourselves the most. We don't believe in ourselves, but we're keen to believe in other people when it comes to our own abilities. And especially for Māori and Pacific, we'd rather take a step back, and just watch and to encourage, but which holds us back as well. So whatever, like for us, we didn't have a plan B. Music was our thing. We had to succeed. For many Māori and Pacific artists, for who didn't come through the 80s and stuff and found it difficult, I think sometimes it's easier for them now because the platform is bigger, whereas back then we had, I think throughout all New Zealand, we only had half a Pacific radio station out of all the Pākehā Palangi radio stations in Auckland, and they actually weren't playing any brown music. And so even videos, they weren't playing Pacific or Māori videos, and that always confused us because we earn, even now they don't do it. I mean, music videos are still being funded, but where are they playing our videos? So we've earned our right to be heard, but we're still not being heard. And so it's been like that ever since we started in the music thing. But this Dangerous Love was our first step into taking our voice out into the world, really.
When you mentioned the work of Brother Phil and his desire, and obviously the whole family, as you just mentioned, everybody's in the music video, and everybody participated, including Brother Matty J. One of the beautiful testaments for me was one of the murals of featuring brother Phil in Otara. Where did the love of, because obviously there's the OMAC design, the creation, when did that come about as part of let's kind of make it all make that part of the world just such a significant place that can make music, you guys change the face of what it's all about. If people are honest about OMAC and Otara Music and Arts Centre, it's one of those things that you really liked it or it didn't fit our community. So we should have recorded all our stuff at OMAC, but we couldn't. So we went other places. So OMAC was that thing that turned up that didn't belong to Otara, but it became a place that we started to use the rooms or whatever. And so that became part of Otara music, sort of folklore and stuff. But if people think that OMAC was one of those things that started a lot of the things, but it didn't. A lot of the music came from our high schools. Like I remember Ryan Mungo was, at Hillary, and I remember a whole lot of bands coming through, even Phil and them coming through high school. And the first song they did was a UB40, one with a saxophone. I can't remember. Goes yeah, that one. And so they did the saxophone like this. So they were doing all that sort of, so they were doing that sort of music, but that's where they learnt it. And so when OMAC came around, we wanted it to be a place that it could hone our skills, but it didn't become that because we knew that it still wasn't ready for us. Our interpretation of music is different from what Pākehā and Palangi way of doing music. It was complete. We understand music differently. We feel it a lot more, and it's a real personal thing. But we also knew that we had to learn the business side as well quite quickly. And OMAC came along, and it was this facility that we could use, but we didn't really understand how to use it. And I think if anybody was honest about during that time at OMAC, that was the general feeling. We didn't understand it. It didn't come with a manual to use it, or how the language that we had to use, or how do we use a producer? How do we use the gear? How do we own it?
we never owned it, and so it never became part of Otara. It just was a thing like Otara Shopping Centre was, you know. It's just a thing that was attached to us. But because Otara Music did really well,
association.
Yeah, it was did well through association, and people look back at it now. And I remember when they did this documentary about OMAC, and I really couldn't think of anything, even though I'd been involved in music. I couldn't actually think.
Well, bro, it's about that honesty, I suppose. It's like, you know, because there's sometimes there's an association with your amazing family to that centre, and I guess like you say, the intent was right.
Yeah,
the intent was right as to whether. Like you say, if you're going to have to go to if you use other facilities to record your music, then that's something's askew. That's not either even asked you to participate or showed you how to do it. Like you said, there's no manual. That it doesn't do anybody any favors, which is cool. So we're gonna charge into Fuemana. We're gonna charge into our second song, which is a song called Seasons.
Yep.
So we'll take a listen to this one here on Radio Wātea, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your company to the Semiotics of Music radio show with Tony Fuemana in the house. Let's take a listen to Seasons. Man, it just resonates. Just brings back all these memories, eh?
And this is when his production changed. You can hear it in the style. He got back into his groove, so the bass line and the way that he spent a long time doing the vocals, but we only had a short amount of time in the studio, so we did a whole lot of practice before it went in. But all these songs from this album is just one take. We didn't actually go back over.
That's what happens when you got a good voice, though, eh? You got a voice that can articulate the quality that you needed, I suppose.
But we didn't know. We didn't know how good her voice was. Because we had, even Phil's backing, no one taught us how to layer vocals. No one, and because we're in the studio doing all this, no one taught us anything. We just knew what sounded good. And this groove. This groove that Phil was starting to create was brand new to the scene. It wasn't a funk thing like Ryan was doing. It was our own style of urban Pacific music. And so it took our groove that we really sat back and just listened to it, but it also had some strong vocals and stuff. And it didn't revolve around a live band or guitars and stuff. It was more processed because Phil could see that what was coming with music. So our first thing was a PR100 and MT32. You know, the beat two little beat machines that we had nicked, and he learnt it. So he learnt it back to front, and so all of this stuff was programmed on it. And then we went into the RX.
But it's such a popular sound that other people use that, everyone, that Drift Away, all that sort of stuff, they similar sort of sounds that were already well planted in his design years and years and years before.
I mean, we nothing is original in music, we're just piggybacking on everybody else, but we take what's good, we take what resonates with us, and we create something different. That's what we do in music. That's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be stuck. And so with Phil and our music, we just took the parts that we understood and made it our own. But the chord structures, the vocal, they're all the same as everybody else, but we just made it our own. And so we were lucky because Kane Massey was around back then. Deep Groove Records, where there was Grace and Sulata and a whole lot of other artists using the same guy. And so our feel of music was coming through. Mark Tooney was around back then, and people were starting to understand that we had this style of music that was unique. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Very cool. There you have it, find it. the beautiful song Seasons. Again, that I guess we're talking just through the break there that you laid that down with under the auspices of not having much time in the studio, so you jump in and it's one take. Obviously very, very lucky. I last week, as you mentioned, Ryan Munga, Ryan was in, there's part of the legacy of that sound is Annie's voice. Part of the obvious legacy of the Fuemana family is your beautiful sister's voice that just sits in the right place, and if that's a one take version of that, then it takes a class act to make that happen, bro.
I remember the band, the song Seasons was our first album, came from an album, and Phil decided to, because we'd been using a whole lot of different names for our band's House Party, White Boy Black, and a whole lot of different sort of names, but he decided that he wanted to take it back to who we were, so we just called Fuemana, and he just called it for what it was. And so this was our first track from that, and also our very first and only album that we did. And we didn't really, Phil was a visionary, so he knew what he was after he'd written all the songs and written all the music for it and written all the vocal tracks and spent time navigating all the stuff through it and making it into this, but he was never taught how to do it, so he was learning on the fly. But his skill base was quite huge, though it was undeveloped, was developing from this. And my sister was another one, because I can still remember my sister arguing with him, my brother would go, well, you're going to do this track, and go, no, I don't want to do that. We didn't really back ourselves, but her voice sort of sits easily in Phil's writing, because Phil wrote around her, but she didn't really realize it, that he had written all these songs to sit on with her voice. But Phil's voice in itself is really quite strong. He's got quite a strong high voice, and it used to actually make me cry listening to Phil sing a lot of the songs, because I used to sit on the side of the stage and listen to him do a lot of ballads and stuff. But the way that he would interpret and feel the songs, like my sister, it would make you stop and just,
Yeah, it was nice hearing, you hear the BV lines in Seasons, just imagine, obviously, when you're looking at the video and the bros playing the upright, playing the beautiful bass there, and just singing that, I can see his face, which is part of the lasting memory for me. And like you being on the side of the stage listening to the brother perform, was just wonderful. When it, I guess part of all songs, they all require a foundation to build the sound off. And the instruments that we used on that, including the upright bass, just seemed to sit beautifully, because it was a new sound, like you say.
It was
a new sound that was coming in.
Back then, back in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of bands were just doing guitar, bass, drums, keyboards and stuff, and they were just straight out bands. But what Phil brought was that he started sequencing music, because bands were using, sometimes they would sequence drums and all that, program it, but Phil wanted the whole band to be like that. So what he wanted was to be, the music would be precise. If it was 3.5 minutes, it would be 3.5 minutes everywhere we went. No, 5 minutes sort of thing. And when we performed, we used to take it on stage with us. So this was a new development in music, because especially for Pacific music, or even Pacific and Māori music, because we were so used to the guitar strumming and all that. But Phil wanted to have a show that focused on the music, on the beauty of music, but on the beauty of vocals, but also performance. So what he was doing was, back in that time, dances on the stage and all that sort of stuff. He was starting to create that show thing that had been done in the past, but when it came to an actual band and stuff, and trying to compete in the marketplace, it was different. Yeah.
Looks like we've got a fire alarm happening over here.
Looks like we got to evacuate.
We just need to.
It's gone out. It's gone out. The fire's out.
Might be one of the kids outside checking the ball at the fire alarm or something.
Let's see what happens when we hold the light to that thing. Oh, it makes it.
I was going to say, where did that? I didn't hear that siren sound in the song, bro. Just there. Might have been a new element. And so the seasons. What would be your take on the lyrical intent behind that?
It was a reflection of our whole life. You know, the seasons itself. You know, when seasons change, you know, we always be thinking. Phil wrote that in remembrance of a relationship that he was going through. And also, my dad who had passed away, and just life in general. That every time the seasons change, you know, you'll be thinking about the people that are close to you. You know, always, regardless of what happens. Phil was always about that. It was less about the music and the money and the fame. It was more about the people that you take along with you. And regardless of what happens in life, you should always remember them. And he was quite strong. He was quite strong with that, even to the point of even Pacifica Records when it was created to help a whole lot of people like us, which was because we were so poor back then. Music actually was about taking us out of poverty, and so which we were blessed with it happened, so we were able to get out there and live a different life. But when he brought people along, he sort of tried to instill that. People like De Hamel, Dawn Raid, and all those sort of guys who were coming through our system. He didn't have anything, but what he did have was music. So the idea was, even Pacifica Records, was to plant seeds in people so that they would do better, that they would pass on their gift. And that really was his drive. And a lot of Pacific and Māori music now is, because hip hop back then wasn't a big thing. I mean, it wasn't huge like it was now. When Lost Tribe and stuff came on and the videos came on, and it showed a different style of hip hop, you know, in your face, sort of almost semi-gangster, but a Pacific girl. That's changed. That's what changed and when De Hamel came on and he started smashing people with his lyrics and the way that he wrote, people were surprised by how good he was. But then AKA Brown came around and did the, you know, duo, you know, R&B sort of stuff. Even though it had been done before, it hadn't been done like this, where these guys would be dressed up the same. We were a straight copy from the Americans. We knew that they had a formula that was working, and we copied it. But the biggest thing that we did was Moisna, the girls R&B and hip hop. Nobody else had done that, and nobody else has done it since. And so he could see the way that it was going, and so all these songs. This song here was about that. You know, don't forget who you are. Don't forget the people around you. No matter what comes, and no matter what season happens, don't forget them, because that was the important part.
Yeah, I guess like you say that. You know, one of the lasting memories that I have of Brother Phil was how he was really uncompromising when he had to advocate. He was almost, well, not so much a mercenary, but he was a man on a mission, and that mission had to be that his people and the people that he represented in the world of music were going to be taken serious.
Well, yeah, and the only way you could do that, and it was in PI music and also in Māori music. The only way we could get people to take our music seriously if we were serious about it. So we would turn up at gigs, huge gigs, and so there'd be all these, you know, $thousands of dollars worth of gear there, and there'd be this dude there, an engineer, and we knew back then that engineers are the guys who can kill you or make your music sound good. A number of times we've had to threaten the guy or even smash him over, you know. Wouldn't advise this, kids, it's Christmas. But, you know, but really, if it's your music and it's your life, you know, you're not going to let some skinny dude who has no investment into your music, you know, the only thing he's good at is picking his nose and doing the, controlling the boards there to control your music. You don't want that.
So what was the outcome of that?
The outcome was a lot of scared engineers who would stop. We would go, can we hire some gear? Where are you guys from? Oh, in Pacifica, I know. And so, but we had to stand our ground with it, because what a lot of musicians don't realise.
So you had to take over the desk? You had to run it yourselves?
Yeah, we'd have a guy standing behind the guy. You know, we'd have a guy, you know, who was bigger than me and who had no idea who would.
Right, I don't know these people bigger than you, bro. Geez, what the hell?
Well, he met some of our friends. So, you know, who didn't even understand anything about music. All he'd do was just stand behind the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Phil would, just stand there, just the presence alone of some dude, you know, who was, you know, 6'7", you know, both ways. And it's sitting there, and Phil would go, you know, how's our music going, bro? And the guy would go, just put his thumb up, you know, it's going well, man. Yeah, oops, sorry about that.
Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, I guess that's the degree of commitment, and vision that the man had. You can't have a vision. I'm going to write the song. I'm going to have these people perform it, and when we go to take it live in front of thousands of people, I'm going to let that one person over there have the full responsibility of the way that my sound is going to be heard.
That's for sure. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, in anything you do, in any craft, you can't let somebody else dictate how your art should be put out there, especially with music, because you're painting all these colours, and you spend all this time on your canvas with music, and you're painting this thing that looks like an image of what you see in the song. And then you're on stage, and the guy who's behind the board is seeing a totally different picture. And so he's with a lot of rock guys who usually would sit behind the desk. They just concentrate bass, drums, guitar, and all that. But for our music, we don't have all that.
All the colours in other spaces.
Yeah, and so he would put up the stuff that he thinks. Because a whole lot of production is when you're going to record music. And I always say this when I go to record with people, I go, look, I'll come and help you, but remember, I'm listening to the song with my ears. My ears are, I like R&B, I like hip hop, and I know what I like. So if you like my style of music, then then we'll get along. That's the way, because I'm not going to go out on the last music I wrote, the girl brought in a drummer who was what are those death metal drummers?
Oh,
and she's a Māori chick, and she was singing
double kicks.
Yeah, and I was singing and going, what the hell is this? So I said, no, I can't use the drummer. And the guy was in the offended, and I said, I can't use it, man. It's not our feel. It's not her feel. And I said, if you want me to do this, we're going to do it. We did the recording in a studio. I listened to the music, and I said, no, it's no good. We threw it down. So I'm not paying for that crap, man. I'm not paying for a guy who wants to, he's on speed and playing drums for an R&B track. And what the heck?
Over and R&B track. Yeah. That ain't the way to go.
I love you.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy, brother. But true too, because you have to stay. You got to stay true to the to the craft. But like you said, it's a really interesting scenario. I've gone to live performances, and the first thing if you're up front, you hear where things just don't sit. But it depends. If you hear with compassionate ears that are looking for this stage to really bring across this really beautiful sound, then the person sitting behind the thing has been given the job and has no idea about master faders and everything else that goes on. And we try to offer some assistance, they get really offended because they're given a job, and I can understand that commitment to any job. But if you don't understand frequencies or quality or the nature of what needs to be heard of any song,
And what you hear on stage is different from what you hear out in the audience. And if your engineer has no idea about R&B or hip hop or your style of music, and it's easy just having the conversation. What have you mixed before? What have you done? And and what have you produced before? Have you produced R&B and hip hop and all that? And if they go no, just say, okay, can we get somebody else? Or could you have somebody else stand with the guy and say, let's have a listen to it.
6'7" guy is going to stand behind you and make sure you maintain.
He's our fader. You're about to be faded.
You don't want to be faded away about that.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of but that's the only way. That was the only way our music could be taken seriously.
Well, it's start to finish two-way. It's like if you're going to deliver a package, it's got to be done this way so that the end vision that the dream that you dream is the way that it's delivered.
Well, yeah, I mean, we spend all our time working on our craft.
Yeah, man.
And if it takes one person to ruin it, and that one person is usually the engineer or the producer. And it doesn't take much for that guy to maybe turn down a bass line when in a song. It's one of the biggest
needed.
Yeah, and then to turn it down for the next one. If he doesn't get it, then he won't get it. So
he's got to get it.
He's gonna get it. Don't be afraid to hit your sound engineer, man. Don't be scared.
There you go, kids. Don't be afraid to hit your engineer.
But we don't condone that. We don't condone that.
We don't condone it's Christmas.
But anyway, take him behind the sound thing and deal to him. Yeah. How do you like it now, buddy?
Yeah, no, there you go. You like bass? Yeah, you
like it now, eh?
We're going to move into our third song now, Fuemana. This third track here on the Semiotics of Music show featuring Mr. Tony Fuemana is We Are OMC. Let's check it out. beat back.
Mm. That's Paul. It's his first rap.
Mr. Paul Fuemana. Yeah. His voice just rings of uniqueness, eh, bro?
Yeah, distinctive, eh?
Yeah, bro. Really cool. Thank you for your time too, bro.
Oh, no worries, man.
Honoured, bro.
Thanks for the payment. Slowly going down.
In there, bro. In there. How much longer you got in the Masters?
Hmm?
How much longer you got on the Masters?
Oh, about 10 months. Not
Wow.
long.
Yeah, I wish you all the best with that, bro. It's gonna be magic. Gonna be magic to be able to stand in that space with that authority and just to be able to say, you know, with conviction that you know, this is where is our assistance for mental health from our
Yeah.
Pacific Islanders, bro. You know,
Yeah.
and my studies say, say it, you know, which is, you know, but
Yeah.
you know, I think it requires advocation.
Yeah, I
It
reckon.
requires, you know, someone with passion to be able to advocate it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you know, it can be a voice that's just lost in amongst the call for it. It can still be lost there.
There's so much money going into mental health, but not a lot of it's going into more education for Māori and Pacific. You know, the biggest issue I see is nobody gets it. Nobody understands what happens.
Is that going to require you to develop something that enables that to happen?
I think what it needs is that message to be repeated basic every single day. If someone in your household is mentally unwell, this is the steps you need to take. Go and get some help, go and get some help, go and get some help. Don't suffer by yourself in Māori, English, in urban Māori, and urban English, and urban Pacific language. Not the Pākehā way of doing it, because we don't just listen to TV. You know, 1 in 4 families don't have internet in the poorer society, so where they're getting information from? You know?
Sure. Or they're not. Just
Yeah, so those are the people that we need to reach, the people that this place was set up for, who have got the awareness and have moved on. But there is this new breed of Pacific and Māori who sit below all that, who struggle with, you know, how do I get a benefit? How do I get some help? You know.
I understand. It's a big money, bro. It'd be good to see what difference you can make, bro. Because I think it's an important thing to have changed, eh? So your kids are playing music?
Yeah, but they play orchestra music, you know, flute, all that sort of stuff. Their interpretation of music is different from mine right now. But like ours, that you got to start from somewhere, right? You got to have an appreciation of music, and they appreciate it.
Yeah,
so
sure.
that's my job done, really. My job is not to, teach them how to be us. It's just to teach them how to love music.
Yeah. That's the key area.
Got to understand.
There you have it, whānau. We are OMC. OMC. What a great song, brother.
I know,
Tell us about that. Obviously, that kicked off with a great groove that drops in and drops out. Helps set up the groove and then kicks off with brother Paulie's first rap.
Getting bigger, faster, better. Yeah, it's starts off with Paulie. He kicks it off. Basically, the OMC We Are the O to the MC was an instrumental. My older brother Phil had started OMC as a way for releasing his instrumental music. That's what happened with this. And when it came to back then, there was this big thing going in South Auckland called Proud, and it was a big tour of South Auckland artists. Day Humble, Seidel, Inglesi, and all these big South Auckland bands. And we released an album called Proud with Manukau Council and a whole lot of different things. And we did a tour around New Zealand. And as part of that album, and this is where the connection comes with OMC and Uptown Studios with Alan Jansen, is that he recorded this. And so the instrumental came, they needed one more track for the album, and this instrumental was there. They wanted lyrics on it, so Phil did this song, We Have O to the MC. And this was the first configuration of OMC, Otara Millennium Club, and this is the first song that they ever did. They never got back together as a band, but this was just done for the Proud album, and it was also Paul's first recording in music. Herman, who's at the back of that track, he had already come through with some of his music, and he was quite a strong rapper. And there's Paul Ave and a whole lot of other guys that are in there. But this was Paul's very first one, and he was really reluctant to do it, because he was still trying to find his groove. What was he good at? And so he could sing and he could play the guitar, but he didn't really know where he was going. And Phil had written these tracks for he had helped Paul to put this all together. And so that's where this track, and this is quite a big step, though we didn't know it at the time that OMC would take off to be what it was. But this was just the beginning of OMC as Otara Millionaires Club as a one-off song. Yeah.
Well, you see that as there's a when you listen to voices, this is my thing. Voice has always been my number one instrument, my number one love, and it's the thing that I go to regardless of the track, regardless of the gender of the person that's singing. It's always about that quality from and the qualities of that voice. And so as soon as Paulie raps, you just think, well, shucks, there's an edge in there, man. There's a uniqueness to that sound. Even though everyone in the world has their own voice, that voice is pretty special, man.
Yeah, it is.
The articulation, the emotion that he conveys what he did in that song was obviously just part of the package that was about to come, bro.
Yeah, well, if you ever want rappers to rap angry, get them up in the morning and do it. If you want them laid back, do it in the evening when they're all relaxed, And so, Paul did really well. I think he realised through this that he had found his thing. So after all this was done, we were playing as Fuemana, and we'd entered the Battle of the Bands, and Paul was starting. Back then, Battle of the Bands was run by Radio Hauraki, and we won it. We won it one year, and we were supposed to get like $2,500 worth of recording, but they didn't give it to us. Because we'd beaten out this other band, Pelling Band, but everybody was cheering for them, but they actually picked us. So we thought we would get this recording that would help us, progress. But all they gave us was a poster. No, they just gave us a poster. Yeah, so yeah, go figure out. Oh. Anyway, but from OMC came a chance for Paul to develop his performance skills and all that with Fuemana and with the other bands. Because when they used to play, we used to play, shows, there would be Fuemana, there'd be Lost Tribe, there'd be Moisner, there'd be A.K. Brown, there'd be De Humble, there'd be guys that would bring on. Phil was always happy to have people come on and be a part of this thing that he had in his head. to have a big family that believed in each other, sort of thing. Yeah. So
that's always the vibe, bro. I remember whenever I was in that man's company, it was always about the show.
Yeah.
So how do we put that show on, and how was that show representative of us, our goals, our aspirations, and everyone's talents need to be exceptional when we do that.
Yeah, man.
You know, that was just the way that the brother rolled, and I really admired that. You know, whenever I was in his company around that space, you know, you talked about what was happening at the time, and the song was the last track that was required to complete the Proud album. That was a special time in New Zealand music, bro, to have that.
Yeah.
The way that Proud album, the purpose of that Proud album, where it came from. Again, none of that stuff comes to fruition if you haven't got a soldier that's just driving the mana of what that is supposed to be, and uncompromising in his resolve to achieve that goal, bro. And look at it, he did it, man.
It was hard. The whole Proud tour was really hard work. I mean, one guy died on it. He drowned, and you're taking a whole lot of, because you can imagine the picture. You're taking a whole lot of guys who have come off the street onto a bus and taking them into all these areas that aren't used to South Auckland hip hop, R&B, and that attitude that comes with it. So you're taking all these, like, in a way, quite rough guys and girls, and taking them into these areas that are not even used to it. So a lot of places in South Island, you know, obviously the racism was, you know, that racism there is superb. and so, you know, you just have to deal with that sort of stuff. But when it came to places like Porirua, they embraced it. But all the stories around Proud, which haven't been heard, you know, there was this huge story about it, and Phil got dumped. Phil got dumped with it. When Phil toured with him, he told me to stay home. He told me to stay home because he needed. Me and Phil had a different type of relationship. He was my rock, and I was his. You know, we were best mates, and so he would always ring, and we would always just do that brother thing. But he didn't want to drag me along with it, even though I was supposed to go and drive the bus for him. We decided not to. But he took it on his shoulders to present a show that highlighted South Auckland and the best that South Auckland had, and it was hard work for him. I felt that the people that organised the whole thing, that funded it, had left, and when one of the guys died on tour, Phil actually went to the families, and stood there while they actually, you know, ripped them apart and said, "You should do that." And he had to do that by himself, and my sister was with him, and it was all through that he learnt. He learnt that there needed to be Urban Pacifica Records. You know, that needed something to bring all these guys together to be one voice, and that's really where Urban Pacifica Records came about.
Yeah, sure.
And that's how that group back then became what they were then, because we were all in the same place in life at the same time in our music history. And so that's why Urban Pacifica did so well back then. You know, we're doing so well back then. We were winning awards, we were on top of the pops and stuff. But that was only because everybody was the same at that time. It'll be different now. Urban Pacifica was around, you know, and Phil was around, because there'd be a different type of people. A lot of the guys that we had there were poor South Auckland guys who had nothing. And so when you have that, you attract that, and so you fight more. You fight for what you have. Yeah. So
that's you know, I've listened, I guess, chromatically, you know, from the beginning of our show to how, you know, the families rise, bro, and this, you know, as part of that is beautiful to see, you know, the vision of Brother Phil to be able to say that, you know, what Proud needs is a home as well.
Yeah.
You know, so that all those incremental steps that just go.
Yeah, Phil had a big vision for music, but my sister Christina, she was the one that kept that vision on track.
Sure.
Yeah, because
you can't do everything, and it's not a one man band. It's great to have the vision, but it's when you get the soldiers that get, you know, jump in behind that as well. They fill in all the gaps, and if everyone's got the same love for the same thing,
for sure,
drives it over.
Yeah.
I mean, yourself included, bro.
Yeah, I mean, people see Phil and Paul, but and that's how it was supposed to be. But behind Urban Pacifica, and in a lot of places behind OMC was my sister, who for a long time kept us in check with stuff. You know, I remember sometimes me and Phil and Paul would be physically fighting, and it was my sister who would get in there and sort things out, because we're all headstrong and we all know everything. But when it came to music, we had 3 or 4 conflicting points of music, views about music, and of course we'd come to blows in it. But it was always her that would always put it straight. And I remember a lot of guys, big guys, because she's not a big girl. I know that a lot of guys would be scared of her, so she would turn up at any time and keep people in check, regardless of how big they are. I mean, I have seen her deck guys, and it may seem like it's a violent thing, but music in itself is a hard gig, because you meet a lot of people who take more than they give.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
if your flame is burning really bright, you'll attract.
You deserve.
Yeah, and you've got to really keep yourself in check with it. And my sister was really good at keeping people in check.
You know, one of the magics I know. You know, obviously I know how massive you are, my bro, and brother Phil was a big man as well. But what I do see when I think about the Fuemana family, bro, was Christina was the rock, bro.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
amongst everything, she was just this rock. That you didn't really argue with that lady, because you know the place that she came from was to keep everything solid, and let's just stay in check, which was the beauty. That's why I love that lady, but she just had this beautiful manner about her that just kept everyone. I don't really care who you are.
Yeah,
I'm gonna keep this thing in check, bro.
And one of the proud stories when the bus was underneath it, and you know, in the ferry going across South Island. And she had forgotten the milk powder for her baby, and she couldn't find it anywhere, and she wasn't getting any help. So she climbed on the outside with her baby off the butt to get down to the van, and she climbed it, and she got it, and she climbed back up again to get it. That's how determined she is to do stuff. She won't let anything stop her, and that's the way that she approaches us. Even today. Even though she's in Melbourne, if I tell her I'm doing something, she'll say, "This is what you should be doing," and I'm thinking, well, you know, I'm older than you, but it's not the point. The thing is, you know, we've always been close as a family. We know our place. We know where everybody sits, and with the 2 brothers gone, we still know where our strengths are.
Yeah, sure.
We don't have to pretend. She's quite straight with me, and I'm quite straight with her. And back then with music, it pays to have somebody who's got your back all the time, who keeps an eye on your dream, because if you don't have that, it makes music hard.
Yeah, that's very true. But well, we're going to head into our into our 4th song, we're gonna let's we've got time to head into that now, eh? So we're gonna go into the One Urban Pacifica, bro. Let's rock this before we head to the news at the top of the hour. In the studio with me today, we've got brother Tony Fuemana, rocking up the Fuemana tribute to the magic music that has been contributed to New Zealand from this amazing family.
You see the production's changed completely,
just what each of them have edged up, eh?
Mm.
Great sound, bro. Love it. Oh, now, how are we running to time-wise? Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Sweet as. All right, awesome. Yeah, we'll just rock up to the news, bro. We'll come up. We'll talk about this, but we'll just have a shorter period of time before we get to the news. What's happening with Seidel and these days?
I think they're split like these over in Brisbane, I think it is.
Oh, right.
Doing music though.
Yeah.
And I don't know where the other dude. I think he's still here. Yeah.
Ah, just. They made some good sound, eh?
Oh yeah, yeah,
They made
yeah.
some good sound, bro. And I did shot a music video. Hummels shot a music video for one of the stuff I was doing. That turned out some amazing talent, eh, bro? You guys over the years, man. It's been incredible.
Yeah.
We're going to head down the hip hop, head down the hip hop genre for a song that we're looking to produce over the next month or so, which is going to be cool. Getting these masters of jazz, these doctors of jazz involved with a bit of jazz hip hop stuff. We try and follow that
Nice.
along that sort of Miles Davis flavor. There you go, Whānau, keep counting. We keep coming with one Urban Pacifica. Oh, bro, there's some amazing talent tied up in that song.
Yeah.
Just incredible. Obviously, we talked about the need for that Urban Pacifica label to take place to be able to bring everybody together.
Yeah, Urban Pacifica. This was after OMC. There was we put together Urban Pacifica Records, and Urban Pacifica Records was basically Phil, and so he wanted to have a label because nobody would listen to you just as an artist, but they would listen more if you're a label, and so what that really meant is that we had to be a registered company, and so we had a lot of these artists who wanted to have their voice heard, but we didn't really know how to do it. So this Urban Pacifica, this came out of our first album, and our first and only Urban Pacifica album, and this was a song that had all the artists, De Hummel, aka Brown, Lost Tribe, and Moisner. These were all and Phil and all these artists on the one track. We did it on other tracks as well, but this was the main one. And this was a way for Phil to say, look, we're here, we're here, and we're going to take over New Zealand music in our own way. When we talk about one, it's one step ahead of everything. There was nobody else doing what we were doing, or what Phil was doing. His dream was to be the best, and to be the best musicians, best everything. And so this was all part of it. And so when he was doing this music and writing this music, he had his dream was to have this huge big sound with everybody that was his family in it. And when you used to see him and in his element with all these guys, he just loved it, doing the music video around around the city and empowering all the people. On the end of this album, he's got a small thing that he talks in. And he goes, one part of it, he says, you empower your friends and your family through your music, because that's what music is all about, because we're all the same. And that was the message that he wanted to leave with his whole album.
Wow.
Well, through your music, empower your friends and your family. And so that's what he always wanted. So when Phil passed away, people came up, and when they came to speak, they used to say, Phil gave me $10,000 to buy clothing. There are DJs around who are on radio stations who, one of them said, when I came to Auckland, I had nowhere, I had nothing. He bought me all my clothing. He bought me shoes so I could look good in my interviews. He would just do that, and nobody knew that until he died. But I used to see it, because he would see people without stuff. Like I remember we would be out at Matamata and we'd stop for lunch, and he saw this guy who had nothing, and so we're buying lunch, and he bought 2 lots of everything, and he just went over and gave it. Back then, there wasn't the Facebook or anything. He just did it consistently.
Who he was.
Yeah, he just did it, and that's with Urban Pacifica, that sort of connected him with Māori music as well. And after Urban Pacifica, he stepped away from it and focused on Māori music, and with him Aria, and he was part of that whole thing of writing that music, and so he was really challenging the way people do their music, because I think with Urban Pacifica and OMC, he had got to the point where he knew who he was in music, and he didn't need to prove it anymore, but he didn't understand Māori music, and so that's where he stepped out into something totally different. His first song, though, when he wrote in Māori music, was he had spent a lot of time building up the song, but then somebody said, "Did you know that's what a song they use in the tangi?" And he didn't really get it until he really understood, and he sort of drowned himself in Māori, and the whole thing that he was learning, that he started to understand it, and so he did Gifted in Māori 1 and 2. He was working on a track called Wahine, was just Māori, female artists, and he worked with VVLC and WVLC, a whole Ruia and a whole lot of other guys. He was starting to put his production into that, and when there was that thing, the Māori Music Industry Coalition, he jumped onto that and was part of that with Moana and a whole lot of other people, and he wanted to see Māori music do well, just like even
That's awesome, bro.
And it's where he stepped in. That's where he was. He was doing Homai Te Pakipaki, the original part of that. He was going around filming all that sort of stuff and helping with that when he passed away. He was editing some of those videos up in Onehunga when he passed away. He was still leaning into, learning about the Māori side of him and how it contributes to his music, but all of that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Urban Pacifica and connecting all those dots for him. And so it was pretty cool. Even being here as part of our journey, a week we came here to bring our music, and took a little while before they started playing that music, but it was cool. It was a cool journey, and we connected with a whole lot of radio at different radio stations, but there's only 2. There's only this one, and Pacific Radio back then was AM, like this is, and so so it was a hard road, but we got there in the end, I think.
I think as a part of that, part of the way that if there's no one doing it, someone's got to do it. Hey, someone's got to knock the door down and say, "Hey, we're here, and this is what we're doing." Right? But I guess you speak of that, the journey from, like you say, he was in complete control through the establishment of Urban Pacific as a label. So that side's done. And when you've earned that respect, the whole world's going to listen to you. I think he could have done anything he wanted in that space.
Yeah, he could have, but he also knew, like we do in music, you're only as good as your last body of work, whether it's your last single. That's the Palangi way of looking at it. But for us who are Pacific and Māori, we know that it's part of our history. It taps us on the shoulder when we're feeling down and we think we can't do anything. The music, when people say to me, I don't see that, it was such a long time ago, 25 years ago this week actually, and but that for me, it's like my backpack. It's part of who I am. You can tell me it was 25 years ago, but I feel it like it was yesterday, because it's my brother's voice that I hear, and it's my older brother's voice and my sister's voice that I hear, and it's like they're with me all the time. So for us, there is no time difference. He could be
timeless.
And it's like when you talk about, Sir Howard Morrison and his music. People say, it's a long time ago, but if you talk to their family, it was like it was yesterday, because it's still part of who we are. And so you can't put onto Pacific and Māori the same things that you'd give the Pākehā,
Yeah, no, that's true, brother. But magic to know that we're in talking about it, which is very cool, bro. And I'm very honoured that you're here today, brother. So I think we're going to head off to the news. Awesome. We're going to head off to the news front, and we're back on the other side to continue our korero today with Mr. Tony Fuemana here. Tony, sorry, brother. I had to make sure. I'm trying to make sure that give you the right props, bro. Mr. Tony. Yeah, Mr. Tony. Yeah, I just as a part of it, it feels. There's just so many memories that just come in, that just flood back from everything that you've done over the years. So we'll head off to the news, whānau, and then we'll come back on the other side and we'll catch up with, continue our talk with Tony and our tribute to the Fuemana whānau here on YTS 6:03 AM. Yeah, just some amazing things come just flooding back from all that stuff, bro. It's just shucks. It's been so cool to talk about it.
We don't have to play that one if you don't want to. We can just go that one if we don't have much time.
No, we're there through till.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. How are we going for time, bro? How are we going for time? So is that our first hour down? First hour done. See, we've already covered. We've already covered 4 songs. We normally do 3 each hour, but I'll go into the when we come back on the other side. We'll do Moisner, and then we'll have a chat because Tony's studying. We'll have a chat about the study more that he's doing. Then I'll talk a little bit about mains as well, and just to help fill up that space of one of the songs. We use a whole 15-minute section around that, just around maybe education, the importance of it,
Yeah.
All those bits and pieces, bro. So you tell me when we come back, bro, and do you want to get another cuppa before we start?
Sure, man.
Yeah. How much can you get a cuppa, right? Is that cool? Can't have you parched, bro.
I know. After you, man.
Do you need bathroom before we start, bro?
You're good.
Okay. No, that's good.
All good, bro. Yep, cool. Kia ora no whānau, no mahara mai, ki te hōtaka o the Semiotics of Music. In the studio with me today is Mr. Tony Fuemana, and we're gonna rock into a song by Moisner that was part of the legacy, bro. And the song Just Another Day. Let's take that on, and we'll have a chat about it after. Unmistakable, eh? That intro. I mean,
The magic sound of Moisna. Moisna, brother.
Yeah.
Tell us about the orchestration of these young ladies.
Well, there's a big story about this one because the whole song, Phil had written the track for this, like every single word he had to note down. This is how you sing it. And so this is with this particular group, because these young girls, these 4 girls, they were quite raw. They had talent, but Phil had picked them individual 2 sisters and the other 2 other girls, but they had not sung together as a group, and so they were put together and Phil had to design it. But the whole backstory to this one is that he had to go to, because they were so young, had to go to every single family and convince them that he had this idea for this girls group. And I can remember having to wait in the car while he had spent hours with one of the girls' families convincing the dad, no, I'm not going to take your daughter. No, I'm not trying to date you. No, this is music. We're going to try to do music. We're doing the videos and clothing and all that. And it wasn't just once that he had to do it. He had to do it for the duration of this whole song and album that we were doing. Even the video, family would be there. And, because fathers and families really protective of their daughters. Sure. And so here was this guy who coming and saying, look, we want to put your girl in the video. And you can think, oh yeah, whatever. Because if somebody came to my house and said, I want to use your daughter in a music video, I go, I don't think so, bro. So he approached, and this was back in the early mid-90s, when there were no Pacific real singers. And so eventually got this done. There was about 3 or 4 videos and songs that we released, and the girls got a New Zealand Music Award for the song, and they were on top of the pops, and they were able to live that dream for that small moment in time back in the 90s, where back then Pacific music was doing really well, really well, and so they were part of that, but they were a major part. So there hasn't been a R&B and hip hop girls group in New Zealand since then, because the way that R&B and hip hop and girls and group, there isn't a huge market for it, but there is a market if you make that market. And so these girls, Phil knew that there was the element of guys like to watch girls, and if you have got 4 attractive or good rappers and good singers and perform well, you'll meet the market. And so he worked hard on them with the fashion, the dance moves, and everything to put all this thing together. As we went on, there was New Zealand's Got Talent. Those came along and changed the whole scheme of thing. Back then there was nothing. There was just Moisna. There was just these 4 Pacific Island girls who were good dancers, good rappers, and good singers, and they took over that section of that music for that time. The fact is, we did this without any real help from any of the other radio stations. It just built its own tidal wave of interest, because Phil could see that there was a market for girls, and guys like watching girls, but girls like watching girls do well, and getting behind them and getting them to live that dream. We haven't seen that many girls groups come out, apart from maybe I haven't really seen any hip hop and R&B since that have dominated the market like Moisna did back then.
So I guess part of the design, if you look offshore, so you're saying that it's specifically Pacific Island girls, which is magic, and the whole. I guess I look at the group as a project, another one of these things that Brother Phil would imagine he could make successful, and did make successful. I guess there's always that there's that American factor of female groups that are doing it over there, and to my mind that sound stands up. Yeah, well, stands up against them.
Yeah, don't we have this sort of thing in New Zealand where we avoid trying to sound like everybody else, like American and all that, but our influences in hip hop and R&B is American. You can't escape that. And so we're influenced by it, and so we write the same way, and we should, because if they're setting the goal, then we should do that. But it's not just people go, you copy American, but rock does it as well. They copy the Americans, and Americans copy the English. And so, a lot of the big bands are English bands. And so nothing is new in music. So you just take whatever works for you and you fit it all together. It's like writing. It's like anything. A lot of your ideas, maybe you may have an original story idea if you're writing a story, but really elements of your story will always piggyback on somebody else's story. But it's making that music sound unique to yourself. And so the voice of Moisner was unique to us. The way that it was put together was unique to us. The elements of the song is copied, because we took things from old America, and because Phil's influence was R&B and hip hop, and you can't do R&B without going back to a lot of the greats. But so he listens like we do. He will listen to the way that people use their voices and the way that they mix, and he put it together in a way that he understood. And he didn't have all the guys that were in the studio. He just had his voice, his ears, his engineer, and his dream for these girls. And that's how the music came together. With all this new music, there was nobody in there like in America, like you sit around Motown and you have a table full of writers and a table full of people. This is how we do this is how we do the words and all that. We didn't have that. We just had us. And for us in New Zealand, it suited us. Because if you compare Moisner to a lot of the American one, it sits there, but it sits just a little bit below when production-wise, because, the way that we listen to music is totally different to the way that they do it, but that's how it should be.
Sure.
We should have our own unique sound.
Absolutely.
And the way that we interpret music should actually be different, because it should be unique to us. We shouldn't be a copycat R&B, hip-hop like everybody else. But we should have our uniqueness. And so when I see hip hop guys, see them, when you see stuff on YouTube and online and stuff, I think, yeah, good on you, man. Do it, smash it, man. Do whatever you can to get those people listening to your voice. Because if you don't do that, your voice won't be heard. And do whatever you want and build your audience, find your crowd. People ask me, what's the best way to, make it in the music industry? Well, pick 4 or 5 really cool songs. Start inviting your friends. Get a small hall, invite them in, get them in there, start listening to your music, then widen that group, start putting yourself out there. It's not hard. People think the music industry is hard. It is in some ways, but again, all it is you opening yourself up to your music and sharing it with other people. It could be in front of one person, it could be in front of 90,000 people. You do it the same sort of way. You just, if it's your heart and your passion and that it'll come across in your music. If you're lazy and you don't put your work into it and you're not energetic about it or you're not enthusiastic about it, it'll come across in your music. That's why ballads are so beautiful. You can feel it because it touches you when somebody sings. I love singers who, like with these girls, who actually just own the song. You can feel it, like with the OMC song. You can feel it in Paul. He's angry. You can hear that he's trying to make his point. Herman at the back of it when he was always an angry guy. It comes across in his lyrics, and it's cool. And with Moisner and stuff, it's the same thing. The young girls going out in life and enjoying life, and they wanted to put it across in their music, and so the music did well in that period of time. Yeah.
No, stunning, brother. Thank you very much. So I guess part of the, with you coming into the studio, we've been talking a little bit about the work that you're doing now in terms of your study, and that's doing a master's in social work.
Yeah, doing a master's in professional practice in the area of community health, and I'm looking out in sexual abuse, mental health, and violence in one person. There are a lot of people in our community, especially Māori and Pacific, not just them, who deal with that sort of stuff every day. So they live with that. And so for me, I've worked in mental health for a long time, and I've seen the way that Māori and Pacific have been treated, and it hasn't, it doesn't resonate with me at all. I think it's in some places I think the government should do more. But the good thing about the government is that they're putting more money into it. But the money is not going into the places that I think will bring healing and long-term healing. So the reason why I got into doing this study, because I'm 54 now, is that I wanted to have a voice. Like I guess with you and your study as well, you wanted to push your understanding of music to a different level in your own life, but also to be able to teach what you've learned. And so for me, that's the same sort of thing. I have this experience, and I've had this lived experience with it, and I wanted to have my voice heard on behalf of all of those people who are involved in this, who don't have a voice, and to be able to speak. And I think the only way I can do that is to educate myself to prove what I know, rather than just basing it off emotion and my own life experience, just to prove statistically that people are struggling, and to prove it so people can hear that voice. And it's like, I guess, with my music, and when I did a movie, because I wrote and directed a movie, and the reason why I did that was because there was a story in my head about people who grow up in a culture and then lose it and then have to find it again. And so I thought, what was the best way to do that? And I thought maybe a movie, and I took this huge task on with hardly any money, and I did it because, like my brother and like my other brother and like my sister, everything is a mountain that we have to climb up. But if you don't climb up there, life becomes really easy, and you don't really get to the top and look out and see what you've done. Because when I look back over my life now, I think of all the people that I've touched and worked with. But when I look ahead, I think there are more mountains to climb. But I want to take up to those mountains some tools. So doing this course for me will be tools that will help me climb to the top of that mountain, so I can bring those people that I've seen struggle to hopefully help them. So that's my dream, really. And I take the same approach as I've done with music, and when I've played music and been in bands, and the same attitude I take to nearly everything. Life is a challenge, and this is not a dress rehearsal for another life. You know, we're not coming back as a porcupine or a hedgehog. This is it. And so fill up your cup with as much as you can. You know, fill it up to the top until it overflows, because when you're gone for a long time. And all that's left here is memories. So while you're here on this earth, do as much as you can, because that's what you're here for. And if you've got the opportunity, the awareness, the well-being, and the health, and you're able to do that, then do it. And the only person that will stop you really doing that is yourself. So that's why I got into it.
Yeah, brother. So I heard at the beginning of your corridor about that. Was that you've identified the areas that you wanna concentrate on? What do they look like for you?
They look quite right now. It's mental health and everything that surrounds that. When I first got into mental health, the first person that I met really was an older Pacific Island man, and this really sort of challenged my whole thinking about mental health. He was in 24-hour care, but his room was a mess. He had urine all over him, feces and all that, and he was in 24-hour care. That challenged my whole thinking of mental health. If that was my brother, would I allow that? No, the answer would be no. And neither would you, and neither would anybody else. But for some reason, in 24-hour care, this was happening. And so me, it challenged the way that I look at mental health, and I started advocating, not just for the people that we were supporting, but also for the staff, because the whole mental health system needs to be turned upside down, and we provide it. So that's the whole reason for me going into education, being able to challenge the way that I think, prove what I know, and then be able to present it somewhere down the line and make a change. So I'd like to see more Māori and Pacific have a better quality of life when it comes to mental health, sexual abuse and violence. I'd like them to be able to live their best life while they're here. And the only way they can do that if we provide the tools for them to do that, to open a door for them to achieve that. And I think by me going through this, and I'm not the only one who has this dream for people. There are a lot of people who are doing it, but that's my personal dream. And I approach it the same way I do with music, and the film as well. Nobody's going to help you to do it. Nobody's going to, advocate on their behalf if I don't do it. So I just do it. And hopefully other people will join my voice later on.
In terms of the physical practice of that, is it your intent to enter the mainstream approach to that delivery, or are you going to go it on your own? What do you?
No, I want to challenge government. I want to challenge policy. The reason why mental health is like it is because there's a lot of money being poured into it. But if that is the case, then why do our own people struggle still? It's because that money is not going into the place like education that it should be. It's not managed well. I mean, how can an older man who's Pacific and in a 24-hour care live like that? Even before I was there, and he's only one of a number of people that I've come across, and it's because when you get into a Palangi system or Pākehā system, it doesn't work when it comes to Māori and Pacific. We see that in prisons. We see that we work on a family basis, and mental health, you work on individuals, but we don't live as an individual. We live in family groups. We need to start remembering who we are first, and so we can design our long-term healing based on holistic ways. Using music, especially using food, using talanoa or kōrero, using all that sort of stuff, the stuff that we stepped away from because we had to fit into another society. And it's all to do with colonization. The whole idea of that is divide people from who they are, and we need to bring them back to, that's why urban Māori and urban Pacifica exists. We're separated now from those things that made us who we are. My dad didn't teach us Niuean. Why? Because I remember him saying, no employer speaks Niuean, just speak English. And so that's the whole thing. No employers speak Māori back then, but they're starting to now. They start to have an awareness. But that's the whole thing with me. I'm aware of it now, but I know that a lot of people who are unwell are not aware of it. They don't have their voice.
Because they're unwell.
Yeah, and so someone has to advocate for them. And if it's not me who have come aware of it, and I've got this life experience, and I've got the ability to do it, then who will?
That's awesome, bro.
Well, us, me, and I'm sure everyone else, all the whānau that are listening, are certainly will tautoko what you're doing, brother. So best of luck. So how much longer have you got? You're doing the masters now.
Another 8-9 months until I finish that, and I'll decide whether I'll do a PhD later. I'm only doing it because I think it's the only way. Like with music, you got to prove that you can do it, and I think I've got enough experience, but I know that in the Palangi system that just having experience is not enough. But if you go through the education system, that is sometimes enough, which sort of doesn't make sense to me when I think about it, because I think if I advocate on your behalf because you're unwell, they should listen, because I see people unwell, come and help them. But for some reason we can't just do that. We have to be educated and play that game, just like in music. In our music industry, we have to talk this way that they want to hear. They don't want to hear about us being activists, or we're trying to help Pacifica. They want to know, firstly in music, what do they benefit? How can they benefit from it? How much money are we going to make? And how good am I going to look for that label? That's, and what's in it for me? And social services doesn't work like that. We're trying to build lives and give people a better quality of life. But you've got to approach it the same way. You've got to play that game. And it's a game that has to be played really wisely. Otherwise, doors get closed on you. So by me going through and doing a master's means that I'm playing the game in a way that people will listen. But really, in reality, I should be able to go to Wellington and knock on somebody's door and just say, look, I'm concerned about the way Māori Pacific being treated in mental health. What can I do to help you, to challenge the way that you guys are doing this in your policy making? Can I be a part of that? And that's what I want to do. Yeah, that's really where I want to go. And I have to do a PhD to do it. I can do it if I have to learn to do a handstand and do that. If I have to, do all that sort of stuff, I can do it. If that's the way that my voice will be heard. Yeah. And it's like music, it's like film. It's not just going to happen. You've got to put in the hard work. You have to, when you're writing a song, like we know as musicians, to write a song and record it, you sit down and you go over the same song a couple of thousand times, trying to get the right chords, right chord structure, the right, when you're recording vocals, is it, am I making those T's sound like a T? Do I need to make it sound like a T? Do I need to stretch it out a bit? Do I need to drop down the middle of that word just a little bit? Do I need to bring it up and all that? So, it's all those sort of things. It's all, you've got to be able to know what you're talking about. So,
yeah. No, that's awesome, bro. That's awesome. I guess when we're talking about, the importance of study, and I have to give some props up to the Southern Institute of Technology that are making our show possible. Thank you very much for your support and tautoko of the Semiotics of Music radio show here on Radio Wātea 6:03 AM. I guess one of them, the magic, we know each other from the music world.
Yeah.
And inside that space, it's something I've been, doing for over 30 years. Out there in the music place, making, doing gigs and working on the craft and bits and pieces, and being lucky enough to come across and spend time in music with so many amazing people. And then I was teaching. I was doing some vocal tutoring at Excel for a couple of years, and came across an amazing program that was looking at the physiology of sound, as to how sound was made, which really just sort of really made me want to delve into becoming a master teacher of this particular system, which is the Estill model. And just as a part of that, it stumbled across Mains. But it was more about at the particular time I was playing with some amazing doctors of jazz. Mr. Kevin Field, who plays piano. Hopefully I'll be able to have him on the show at one stage. And then Ollie Holland, who plays the upright bass. And as we were talking about before, about the capacity when you have that knowledge, that breadth of knowledge on music design, the notes, the inner workings, the inner sanctum of music. Nothing's impossible. And I suppose, to have dreams and aspirations of working in that space, the more knowledge you've got can help you, achieve those steps. And I guess that's part of the reason I'm at Mains. It's what I know that they do. They're trying to, under the banner of the Bachelor. And I'd be interested to see what the comparison of your Bachelor to this Bachelor is. They're trying to equip us, the students that are doing it, to be able to operate in the music industry today with industry knowledge, songwriting knowledge, production knowledge, because the scope of the world has changed from before. If you needed a record company, now you can make it on your laptop. You can do all those bits and pieces, but then you need to be able to communicate. You got to have a great product and then tell someone about it, and then share it. Social media is different to the way it was before. It's how you make the world know that you're alive and you've got a song. It's all. How do you see that? Just the development of the world through technology. And
I think it's amazing. I think when Justin Bieber came along and he got discovered, by Usher and those guys, the way that he came onto the scene was brand new for the industry. He got discovered online, one of the biggest artists in the world, and that woke up the whole industry that you don't need a record label anymore. And the record labels around the world have strangled musicians for a long time because they dictate terms, and they say this is the way that we do music, and you either follow us or you don't, or you're on the shelf. But when it came to online stuff with Justin Bieber and a whole lot of musicians afterwards, we were telling the established record labels, we don't need you anymore, and that really shook up their whole industry because they were starting to lose money. End of the game, music is about money, whether you make money or not. We understand the feel-good factor. We sing and love it because we love it. Music labels, on the other hand, their job is to generate income. That's it. And they'll do it whichever way they'll do it. They will strangle your talent. They will do whatever they can to make that money from you. The technology these days takes away that power. It gives the power back to the musicians. But what it doesn't do is that you still have to know your craft. You still have to know how to write a song. But on saying that, technology these days is that you can have a crowd of, say, 20,000 people listening to your music, and that's enough. That you could write a crap song and 20,000 people like it, but that's 20,000 people that like your song. And I sort of figure that's better than what we had back in the past. You had to write a song, get your CDs pressed, go out and perform. Hopefully the radio stations will pick it up, and then you go to shows and sell your CDs and all that. You don't have to do that. They just download it. The fact that it only costs $1.99 or less to do the song, and if you have 1 million or so views, all you're getting is maybe $200 from your views. Those are all the stuff that you have to learn and understand, and you can do that online. But the way technology is going now is cool for us as musicians, but it's also our downfall, because we are competing now with so many different people, and we know that for young white people, if you're good looking, if you're skinny, if you're good voice, the chances are you do well. If you're brown and the same thing, chances are you may not do well. But it depends on there is still that big divide. The older you get, your music is, you're challenged by it. But we forget that people grow old too, so they follow your music. And so the opportunity now is huge. Again, it's like before, you just got to plan it, think about it, what are you trying to achieve, and stick to it. If you don't have some sort of goal in your head, you're just going to go astray. So you've got to have a goal. If your goal is to have 20,000 listeners or 1 million listeners, what are you doing to make that happen? So you've got to keep on doing that. And back in the day when you didn't have to do that, you just booked shows, go on, did that. But now it's different. The game has changed, but the game is still the same. It's still about
just play a little bit different.
Just play differently. Yeah, it'll change too. By the time we kick the bucket and and people going, why do you keep on playing that half bizarre song? It's old. The game would have changed, tremendously, and it's already changing now.
Yeah,
But we just got to embrace it. If you love music, you've got to embrace it. Don't worry about your age, the way you look, or anything. If you love music, just do it. Just do it, man.
It's such an important element that and you spoke about it before, is that you can hear the intent, you can hear the heart of a singer.
Yeah.
If they're singing it properly and singing it from the right place, you'll hear it regardless of how old they are, or whatever they look like, because there's a difference between that connection and that understanding. I guess that's the beauty of it for me.
Yeah.
Being there, for one of my personal experiences that over the last 30 years, we've done 5 albums of music. One of those albums is a Māori album that plays here on Wātea, which is great. And my skill set was such that I could write a song in a couple of minutes. I could write the lyrics for it, but I didn't know the music production. So I'd flick that off to my bro Tere Ngārua Iti, and he'd whack up these amazing tracks. And then it's alive, and you've got all these bits and pieces. But it's now the magic of being able to take the conceptual idea through knowing how the digital world works now through the computers, and you're whacking it all together, and that's the beauty. That's what I would say, because I come across a number of people who love music just as much as we do, but they don't know how to put that stuff together, and that's one of the beautiful. Similar to you, bro, 54 and going back to school and studying is a wonderful place to be, but I don't think that I really understood the beauty of between a C note and an octave is only 8 notes, but there are 12 notes in between there. If you look at the sharps and flats, and in the famous words of Quincy Jones, that's all that music is. Over the last 350 years, all music's been made from those 12 notes, either higher or low of that major C scale, which means that for the next 350 years the same thing will happen, but your selection of those notes and how you put those together and what you do with them makes your original song, which is quite incredible.
It is incredible, and Quincy Jones would know because he's like 350, so he invented that whole thing. But music,
350 Grammys and all those bits and pieces. Yeah,
but music can be like the mechanics of it is boring, learning all that stuff, and you have to learn the craft, but people don't care about the craft when you're listening to music. Your music has to touch lives, So you can spend all your time and money on the best gear and all that, but if your music does not touch the heart of the person that is listening to it, your music isn't going to go anywhere. Like Day Hummel's first album, a lot of that album was done in the garage, and we had to wait until planes would go over the garage, so the planes noise wouldn't be in the recording, and then there'd be some more stuff in. And that's the way it is. But music needs to touch hearts.
When you're saying you listen, you tuned in, you just.
I mean, it doesn't matter, because you can listen to a song and you don't even know what the person looks like. But if that song resonates with you, you'll just keep on listening to it, regardless. And that's what songwriters have to do, and musicians have to do, and musicians have to listen to what they're playing to, and understand that people are busy now more than they were back in the 80s and 90s. We have less time, we've got more competition for our time. Your music has to fit within that busyness. That's why Spotify is around, so people can walk around their phone and just play it, whereas before it has to be a radio. So what is your music going to do to attract that person's attention? You've got to be able to reach somewhere into that soul, and so you don't spend too much time writing and learning all the mechanics of it, though that is an important part. You have to learn to structure your music so it touches lives. It has to resonate with somebody. It just has to. Otherwise, you're just playing to. I remember my older brother when he used to come and watch me play and sing, and he used to always say, "Who are you singing to? You know, sing it with soul, sing it with heart," because I could do that with a saxophone or guitar, but my voice was different. I would be too technical in a way, you know. And he said, like, think about the same way that you play the guitar and saxophone. And it's the same thing Nathan Haynes, who's a really good musician. And when I was learning to play the saxophone, I was going through all this technical stuff, and he stopped me. We were in Texas, and he pulled me out of the bus and goes, "Bro, just go for your tone. That's what you're listening to. Just tone. Find the sound that you like, and if you resonate with it, stick with that, and then build on that." Because I was teaching him to play the guitar, and he was teaching me to play the sax. And it all comes down to that. If it connects with somebody, then your music will do well, even if it's 5 people, 10 people, 1,000 people. You know.
That's me, bro.
Yeah.
So I tell you what, we'll get into our last song of the day, which we'll be able to go back into that conversation in Texas, bro.
Sweet.
As to how it all happens. And so whānau with Tony in the studio with us, and a massive connection, obviously, with the song that a famous song known as How Bizarre, coming from the famous whānau of the Fuemana. Let's take a listen to How Bizarre here on the Semiotics of Music Radio Show on Radio Wātea, 6:03 AM.
Help yourself.
Oh, good, bro. Too good, bro. Too good. There you go, bro. Just an amazing part of history, New Zealand history, and the tapestry of music that's been woven.
Yep.
And just stunning. Obviously, you got to get a chance to tour around the world with Paulie and the crew when that happened. What was that like for you, bro?
It was eye-opening, man. Because back in those days, when we were in the States, we were number 1 on the radio charts and number 2 on the Billboard charts. There wasn't anybody else bigger than us at that time that we were there. So with music, it changes every week. But for that particular moment in time, we were the number 1 band in America, and it's a surreal thing because it's what you always dream about as a musician, that you want to be number 1 because that's your goal, and to have that actually happen for your younger brother and you're a part of the band, that's an amazing thing. It's an amazing experience. So we played on an aircraft carrier, we played in a Whiskey A Go Go in LA, where a lot of the big old bands like the Doors and a whole lot of those big bands had played in initially, like Nirvana and all that. They played there. We played in a place out in Denmark which had 90,000 people that had turned up to it. We played in Rome, and a whole lot of these places where it was just a dream. And so there we were doing our thing. Every single day would be in the morning, would be at a radio station, playing How Bizarre, myself on the guitar, Taisha Tari doing the background vocals, Nathan Haynes with the flute, and it'd be just us and doing the song every single day. So we were playing it so often that it became a part of who we are. And even now, when I see Taisha and Nathan and Manuel Bundy and those guys, it's a quick reflection back. It was an amazing time. It was an amazing time for Paul. It was an amazing time for me being his brother, watching it happen and being a part of it. It was an amazing time for Māori and Pacific music, because people always associate us as being Pacific Islanders, but every place we went to, we proudly said we were Māori and Pacific, and that we would, Paul would always say, things like kia ora and when he does, and always try to talk about where he's from in big shows. He'd also, say how many people you hear from New Zealand, and people would actually come. I remember we were in California and other states where we would turn up, people would turn up and go, "Hey man, my name's John, I'm from the South Island, I'm from Westport," and we'd go, "Hey man, come backstage." We were having all over that, the Māori guys were out there, "Look, I'm just working on a rig down the road, I'm from Taihavik, and just come to see what you guys." I said, "Oh, just come back." It happened in most places that we'd go to. And in Roskilde, which is in Denmark, which had 90,000 people, right at the back of the audience, this guy had put up a New Zealand flag and was waving it back and forth, and I've got a photo of it. And all those amazing things, and we had an amazing experience, but it made you realise how much music influences people, how much of an impact it has. And for us, as we saw this thing, because you only see it in movies, people chasing your van and people chasing your bus, and that was happening to us. And people would chase our tour bus, and people would go nuts. I remember playing in Texas, and it was so hot outside, and we were playing, and there was I could see this little group of people down there, and the hose where the water was going wasn't reaching them, so I just passed down from our rider, like 3 bottles of water to them. And as soon as I got the water, they started going nuts with it. I'm thinking, man, it's only water. But you don't really realise how people see you when they think that you're this better than than you are. And I remember some guy coming up to me and saying, "Look, I used to listen to a lot of George Duke playing his music, and I like the way you play the bass." And I'm thinking, "Oh, that's really cool," but I'm still struggling how to learn all the other notes. But music is music, if you touch somebody, and this song at that time touched a lot of people, and this year is the 25th anniversary of that song going to number 1.
I saw you post the other day.
Yeah,
which was, great.
and it's amazing, because I've met people who said, I was in England and I was driving around with my family, we used to listen to that song all the time. I've heard people have contacted me from different countries and said, I'm listening to How Bizarre in the shop right now. And it's crazy because the song has a life of its own, and even on TikTok now, it's gone up to like 1 billion people who listen to it. It's a 25-year-old song, and people are using it, and so it has its own legs, and it's like music has always been like that.
Yeah,
sure. And and it was an amazing journey, and I'm sad that my younger brother isn't here to enjoy the way that people have enjoyed his song, you know. And
How did you see, so you talked about, we were lucky enough to hear, Paulie's first rap, his baby steps into the world of music. How did you witness your brother take on the magnitude of that fame?
I could see that he struggled with it, because we come from a family that didn't have very much. We came from a very poor family, and I think I said this before. There was a period there where we were cooking our meals in our fireplace because power was turned off, and our grass, we didn't have a lawnmower, so it was all huge, and we were that family in the street that we struggled. And so you take that type of family or person out of that and give them instant fame, instant money, and you'll struggle with it. I don't care who you are. We see that with guys who win a lot of money, who get a lot of fame, sports people. You see that, and Paul was no different. He struggled with it. He didn't. The record industry is really cutthroat, and I saw that firsthand with him. But he managed it the best way that he could. The ride was amazing, and he enjoyed every minute of it. But I'm sad that he left early. I'm sad that he couldn't enjoy more of it, because it impacted everything of his life, and that's the sad part of it. But he handled it as best as he could. But it's hard one to explain, because it's hard to explain to people that you're number one in the biggest country in the world, but you're also number one in like 10 countries: South Africa, Australia, England, Germany, France, and every place we go to, we are the number one band. And that's a hard thing to have in your mind when you haven't had that, because the demands on him as an artist and as a person was something that I would never experience. I only experienced through him, and I could see the toll it was taking, because I'd see him every morning, and it was a hard thing for him to handle, but he handled it the best way that he could.
Sure.
We would go places, and trunk would fill, guys with record label guys would just fill it up. Just fill it up. We got there's 6 of us in the bus, so you just fill up your trunk full of stuff. We just walk through and do that. Whatever we needed, we can get on the tour. We'd stay at the best hotels, travel in the best, whatever vehicles or whatever, and we were treated like kings for a while. For the whole time that we were on tour, we had the best of everything. And if you have people every single day for like most of Paul's life in music, telling you every single day that you're the best thing, your music is hot, you're really well, to do that and then to remove it, that's a hard thing to cope with, especially if you don't have those skills to cope with it. I think I believe that's one of the things that he struggled with the most, and I think anybody would struggle with it.
Did the record company have any? Did the record company, yes, like there's great work done by a number of people, like you say, in the sports world. They have these mentors that come in and support and bits and pieces. Did Paulie have? No. Outside of you being family, to be able to offer that shoulder.
Music industry is not designed for that sort of thing. They're only there for the money. Back then in the 90s, even less so. The things with sports, it's only been happening over the last few years. It's not a common thing. So we still see sportsmen falling through the cracks. But with music itself, there is no mentoring scheme. There's more like, you give me as much money as you can scheme, and that's really how it works. It's extremely cutthroat, and it's and if you don't understand that when you go into music and your music does well, you should get yourself ready for a hard fall, because once your music comes off the top of the charts, because at the top, when you get the number one, there's nothing else beyond it. That's just it. It's whether you maintain it across the air. A lot of artists only have one hit, but they consistently play and put up music. It doesn't mean it goes back. You have some artists that have constant hits, but a lot of artists only have one, and that's okay. Yeah. Because you can have a good lifestyle and live well, and your name's out there. And so for him having to cope with all this was a difficult thing. But so there was no real mentoring back then for him. But there were people who should have. But again, you know, it was what it was, and it was an amazing ride. Yeah, it was
On
amazing.
that road, bro. Thank you. You know, our ride's come to an end today, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming in and representing your whānau. You guys have contributed, you know, and love them all, bro, and yourself included. Thank you for your contribution to New Zealand music. It's been phenomenal. We've listened to some of those tracks, listened to the inner sanctum of what you've done, how you've gone about it. The incremental steps to success have been hard work, but stunning. And thank you for sharing, bro. So I'm so proud that you came in and shared that with our listeners today here on Radio Waiata, brother. So Merry Christmas to you and your family, bro.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with your studies, and
Cheers.
hope everything goes well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's really good to be able. It's a bit emotional because I haven't heard, you know, like Seasons. I haven't heard it for in years, and some of the songs I haven't really gone back to listen to it. So it's been a good journey for me, and it's nice to you know, be in your space and to hear the wider what you're doing and the show here. And you know, thank you to the people who are sponsoring it. Thank you to, you know, Aotea for letting you do this. So it's an important, you know, it's an important thing. Good luck for your study too, and wishing everybody a Merry Christmas. Keep safe. Don't drink and drive. Don't be dumb. But also remember, beat up your sound engineers if they don't. No, we don't condone that. Don't condone that. Sorry. There's one. I work in.
Sorry, Daniel, we love you, bro. We love you, bro.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
All right, whānau, you guys have a great day. Ka kite.
Thank you, bro.
Oh. Thanks, bro. Fire out. So cool, brother. Thank you so much. I'll take that up, bro. Finish that coffee, honey?
Yeah, finish, yeah. Thanks for your time, man.
Oh, bro, thank you, bro. Just what a magical story journey after you, bro.
Hopefully, Tash will come back in.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we just if I can't get it back in, we'll see. Yeah, go on the other side.